was in there listening, having the show running and not talking or doing anything. I forgot I even had it up. Sorry about that, folks. Welcome back to the Weekly Narrative. I'm your host, Jeremy, back with the Tuesday night edition. We've got a very interesting lineup of topics for you guys tonight, so come on in, grab a seat, get a drink. I've got some drink here myself. We got Synergy in the chat. What's going on, buddy? Dari. Fill up those seats. Call your friends. Tell them to get on the stream. This is going to be better than anything Brian Selter's got on CNN. I'll tell you that for sure. Oh, already got a red flag. Drop frames detected. Okay. Troubleshooting. Hold on, guys. Let me take a look here. What does the stream look like for you guys? Does it look terrible? Happens every time, so I'm not even sure if this is real anymore. Anything? Looks okay to me. We're pushing through. Checking a couple things here. It's okay. We're letting people get in the stream. Guys, we're going to be talking about transgenders in sports today. I know it's a topic that you guys love. We're going to have a little conversation about that. We're going to be talking about a poll that they did on university students about free speech, what they feel about free speech. It's going to be cool. We're going to be talking about the governors, evil governors. Yes, that's right. We know we hate Governor Abbott. We hate DeSantis. We're going to be talking about what they're up to these days. We got some brand new news hot off the press about what they are up to. And talking about Juneteenth, what happened on Juneteenth, some reactions to some shootings, actually mass shooting that happened in Oakland during Juneteenth celebrations. Look at how the black community has reacted to this devastating event, right? Because we all know mass shootings are things that we like to hear about in the news these days. If you guys didn't notice, we don't have Delaney today. She was on the way back from her vacation, and she did not get favorable traffic. She's stuck in traffic somewhere outside Sacramento on the barely drivable roads, so that is why I am flying solo tonight. Caitlin says, you can't beat the drinks made for you Saturday. Yes, that's true. They were delicious. Thank you for that, by the way. So with that being said, guys, we got, there's so much more on the docket I got to share with you guys today, but we just got to jump right into it, you know what I'm saying? Let's see if we can get through these today. Let's do it. You ready? Let's go. I'm getting wajickied, guys. Just want to let you know. I'm getting drop frames messages for no good reason. But you know what? We've got people in the chat saying that Steve Bannon was on Tim Pool. How was that? I don't really watch Tim Pool that much anymore. Tim Pool's kind of a guy where you listen to him a few times and you know what he's going to say for the most part. So, was it any good? Is it worth watching? Should I check it out? Let me know, because it's definitely one of his more interesting guests. Let's see here. Streamlines very high. Okay, we got a stereo comment that came in while the intro was running. Let's go ahead and jump right into that. Let's get the stereo warmed up. It's our boy Paul.
Fucking goddamn Juneteenth. My actual birthday. It's going to be ruined forever going forward. So, the second half of my life. Anyway, the white pill, I promised. Failed GameStop GME stock. Short position leads White Square Capital. Hedge fund to shut down. So, in summary, Diamond Hands 1, Wall Street 0. You are welcome.
How about that? You know, I've been on the fence about covering GameStop and some of the crypto stuff that's been going on with that, because I don't know how inclined my audience is to stocks, crypto, trading, stuff like that. I am very involved in that. I think that's fascinating that these companies are finally folding under the pressure of the diamond hands. What's up, Paul? Paul, Holly, what's going on, Holly? Paul says, where's Delaney? Delaney's didn't make it back in time from vacation. It's just he's going to be back on Saturday. Game stonk. Yes, so let me know what you think in the chat. Is the GameStop thing something you're interested in? We can drop some commentary on that after we get through the really important stuff like the transgenders in sports and the fact that Abbott, the governor of Texas, hates dogs, apparently. Actually, you know what? Let's just jump right into that one. This is a brand new hashtag that's flying off the press over on Twitter right now. Because I like to go through right before I come on the stream and look for the breaking news that you guys may not be aware of yet. So this is from thehill.com. And there's a bigger story, like always, behind this story that I'm sharing here. It's not about dogs. It's not about Governor Abbott. We'll talk about the bigger story at the end. See if you guys can't figure out the pattern that we see that gets repeated often in society in the way that we look at these problems and how to solve these problems. From the Hill, the hashtag Abbott hates dogs is trending on Twitter after Texas Governor Greg Abbott vetoed a measure on Friday that would have expanded animal cruelty laws. The Houston Chronicle on Tuesday reported that the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act garnered widespread bipartisan support in the state legislature and would have expanded protections for dogs. Dog owners who violate provisions laid out in the bill, such as using heavy chains or tethering dogs outside with short leashes, would have been subject to fines between $500 and $2,000 and up to 180 days in jail. In his veto statement, Abbott, himself a dog owner, argued that Texas already had sufficient laws protecting dogs. Quote, Senate Bill 474 would compel every dog owner, on pain of criminal penalties, to monitor things like the tailoring of a dog's collar, the time the dog spends in the bed of a truck, and the ratio of tether to dog length, as measured from the tip of the nose to the base of the tail. Texas is no place for this kind of micromanaging and over-criminalization, Abbott wrote. So soak that in. Let that sink in. What his rationalization was for vetoing this bill. Now, I didn't see anything in there in his explanation about how he hates dogs. So I guess we'll find out where these Twitter users are getting that from. But the article continues to say thousands of Twitter users using the hashtag tweeted their outrage. Oh, of course, because we can't go 2 days without getting outraged about something here in America. Julian Castro, former mayor of San Antonio and a 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, tweeted, quote, I have to hand it to the governor. Anti-voting rights, pro-animal cruelty is a bold re-election message. That's right, folks. They interpreted that as they're just stacking on the anti-voting rights just because that's their narrative right now. But pro-animal cruelty is how this is interpreted by people on the left, referring to the GOP-backed bill that passed last month that has been blasted by critics for disproportionately affecting low-income and minority communities. That's the voting part, the anti-voting rights, which, again, that's kind of a whole fake narrative in and of itself that we can talk about some other time. But here's a tweet from from Julian Castro. Another bill that fell victim to Abbott's veto was Senate Bill 474, known as the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act. The bill would have made it illegal to chain up dogs and leave them without drinkable water, adequate shade, or shelter. It also calls for a ban on tethering dogs with heavy chains. And we have the Twitter equivalent of those. Who is it? Sarah McLachlan. Do you remember those commercials where you get this sad, piano music, sad violin music that come on, and they show the pictures of the emaciated dogs chained up outside in the rain, with flies flying around them, and they have their rib cage showing because they're malnourished. We have the equivalent of that happening here, where this person is saying, impersonating a dog, saying, I was chained until hashtag soulmate rescue me. Bad peoples chop off my tail. They starve me. I was 35 pounds. Now I healthy 70 pounds. Hashtag Abbott hates dogs. So now we could laugh about, the fact that these people are just basically emulating these Sarah McLachlan commercials to further their political ideology. But the moral of the story here is a little bit deeper. And as you know, here at the Weekly Narrative, we like to do a little bit of a deeper level of analysis. Now, it doesn't take a genius to see what's really happening here, but look at the way that he rationalized not passing this. He said, this would be kind of an overreach of the government. We don't need to micromanage people. This is over-criminalizing. And it does include a lot of stupid things like having to measure the ratio of the tether to the dog length from the tip of the nose to the base of the tail. Come on. It's too much, right? So he basically said, look, we're not going to, this isn't the role of the government to do this. And the funny thing about that is that these are the same people, by the way, these dog commercial people, these are the same people who would call Abbott a fascist or an authoritarian. The guy who's advocating for lesser powers to the government by not having to enforce stupid things like dog chain leashes and things like that. So a little bit of irony there, but it's a rational explanation as to why he doesn't want to, a principled, rational explanation as to why he's not going to pass the law. And then on the flip side, you get this the deepest level of emotional kind of triggering, emotional outrage, anger. They're triggering off of your emotions primarily. That's what they're doing here with the whole Abbott hates dogs and all this kind of stuff, and animal cruelty, calling this animal cruelty. You know, this is it's trying to get you to think of the times where you were alone on the rainy Sunday watching TV, and then that commercial with Sarah McLachlan came on, and then you saw the dog with the flies on his face. They want you to feel terrible, and they want you to channel that outrage at Governor Abbott. So I just thought that was interesting. You can see the rationality behind both of their decision-making processes. One is principled, based on rationality. One is purely emotional. And what do I keep telling you guys here? We do live in a hyper-feminized society where emotion reigns supreme. So I thought that was funny. I wanted to share that to get the night warmed up here. Let's jump over to the YouTube chat, see what you guys got to think about that. Bitch Connor, what's up, dude? He says, I doubt the dog wrote that. Yeah, I agree. He probably did not write that. Stalking Horse, anyone else getting animal abuse ads? Was there a dog crap cleanup part of the bill? Yeah, probably not. Hit the like button, folks. That's right, Dari. Thank you for that. Keep people in line. Hit the like. Let's get the thumbs up on there. A few thousand of those, and we can fight back against Susan Wojcicki. Doug says, quote, in the arms of an angel. In the arms of an angel. Yeah, exactly. Pull at your heartstrings propaganda. That's exactly what it is. And what an easy life that would be. It's so, think about that for a second. Stop and think about how much easier of a life that really would be to live on the left, where if you want something done, all you got to do is make somebody upset about it. And then next thing you know, they're out in the streets throwing Molotovs through windows, smashing cars, burning stuff down. It's a lot more difficult. It takes a lot more discipline to be on the right and actually have principles that you would actually follow through with in times like this, where you think Governor Abbott didn't know he was going to get called a rights abuser or a animal cruelty advocate, things like that? Do you think he wasn't going to get called that? Of course he was going to get called that. He knew he was going to get called that, but he had to stick to the principle of this isn't the government's job to do this. So again, it's a much more difficult life to be a principled person. Let's see. Dari says, I turned the channel. I'm a big dog person. Can't watch it. Yeah, well, those you can rest easy knowing those dog commercials are really, really, it's the same exact thing, man. They're really overtuned. They throw the dog out there themselves, and they like throw mud on him and stuff, you know, and then they sprinkle some water on him just to really get all the real trigger points in there for you. I still hear that commercial on broadcast TV when I overhear another member of my house watching TV. Yeah, dude. It's 'cause, you know why? It's because they work. The emotional triggering stuff, and that's the moral of the story here. This is why I wanted to share this with you, is because regardless of how advanced we get, we can send a rocket to the moon, to Mars. We can have high-speed internet that allows me to communicate with you in near real time from anywhere across the planet, which we're doing right now. We can do all sorts of insane technological things. And yet, despite these advancements, we still get triggered by seeing a sad dog. So why not just keep running with that? That's what I'm saying. It's easy. You don't have to think about it. You just throw it out there. Trigger someone's emotionality. You can get them to do anything you want. And when you live in a hyper-feminized society where people are trained, conditioned to value emotionality over reason, over rationality, over principles, then of course, dude, you're never going to stop seeing this stuff. Osa says it's the turtle straw thing, but on a smaller scale. Exactly. You guys know the turtle straw thing. We talked about that here before, right? The whole reason the straws got banned in California and across the nation, wherever they are, is because of one video of a turtle with a straw in his nose. It got millions and millions of views. People got so triggered by that. And then guess what? Next thing happens. We're changing laws because of the emotional reactions to a video with a turtle and a straw in its nose. It's sad state of affairs, folks. But this is a continuing trend where we're seeing really any kind of attacks against these particular governors. Now, we see attacks against Abbott because he's the governor of Texas. We also see attacks against who? Attacks against the rock star from Florida. That's right. This guy is in the news almost every other day, dropping some hot fire. And this week is no different. DeSantis, coming in hot from Florida, is going to sign a bill requiring high school students to learn about, quote, the evils of communism and totalitarian ideologies. That's right. The bill also creates a library that allows students to learn about, quote, real patriots who escaped communism and socialism. But don't take my word for it. Let's listen to Mr. DeSantis explain it himself right now.
Curriculum can really provide a guide to how that should be done. The bill also expands our previous efforts in civics to add a requirement for the high school government class that students receive instruction on the evils of communism and totalitarian ideologies. We have a number of people in Florida, particularly southern Florida, who've escaped totalitarian regimes, who've escaped communist dictatorships to be able to come to America. We want all students to understand the difference. Why would somebody flee across shark-infested waters, say leaving from Cuba to come to southern Florida? Why would somebody leave a place like Vietnam? Why would people leave these countries and risk their life to be able to come here? It's important that students understand that. Now, as part of this bill, Florida will create a Portraits in Patriotism library so students can learn about real patriots who came to this country after seeing the horrors of these communist regimes. We actually have folks here today. You'll hear from her in a minute, Anna.
So there you go. We're going to be, the only governor, I would say, who's actively trying to restore patriotism in the country. Now, for those of you who are listening on stereo, apologies, but you couldn't hear that section. I do recommend looking at the youtube.com/weekly narrative live stream if you want to get all of the premium features, including video and the audio clips from the videos that we're watching. It is free. But, this guy is... The question that keeps coming to my mind anyway with DeSantis is, where are all of the other governors? Why aren't they taking similar actions? Now, maybe they are. There may be a case where I'm ignorant of these governors who are out there creating bills to teach about the evils of communism and totalitarian ideologies, and I'm just not aware of those. But DeSantis seems to be the only guy out there doing it. Now, there is another question. Is this really actually a good thing? Is it a good thing to use the language, quote, evils of communism and totalitarian ideologies? Now, I got to admit, it's not something that sits immediately well with me. I have the question, and I got to stop and think to myself, should we really be teaching about evil, quote unquote, in schools? Now, what I would like to see is a factual breakdown of communism and totalitarianism as part of a course or curriculum that actually covers civics and governments. You don't have to do a course specifically for the, quote, evils of communism, in my opinion. You have to teach kids about civics because, we've all been kids before. We know what happens if you try to teach kids what to believe. They will end up rebelling against that. And we don't want to see unforeseen backlash, or how would Ron Paul put it? Backlash, is that how he put it? Yeah, we don't want unforeseen backlash from this thing. So the question in my mind is really just, is this the best way to implement what we're trying to do, which we all agree on? We all agree we need to teach people about the evils of communism, but is this the proper way to do that? Let's jump to the stereo comments. We had a couple come in there. Osis.
That's something that I've always asked people and wondered about is why put on the same level as Nazis. They've killed more people. They're objectively just as evil, if not more so. But really, the government style is not very different. So why is it that communism is... People can walk around talking about how they love being a communist. But if you're a Nazi, you're a bad guy. My hypothesis is that there's so many of them in academia that they're not vilified. But I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, it's a good hypothesis, Osis, and it is a question that needs to be answered. Why isn't communism treated on the same level as Nazism? Now, I don't have a good formulated opinion on that. I will say that, who's the anarchist guy that's flying around on podcasts everywhere these days? With the weird-looking, troll-looking anarchist guy. He just came out with a book. Anyway, he has a good opinion on, the fact that communism it wasn't so much a direct attack on a specified group of people where they said, you know what, we're going to eliminate all of X, Y, and Z. Yeah, Michael Malice, thank you guys. This is the beauty of having a low latency stream, is that I can get quick responses from you guys. So Michael Malice has a good theory on why communism isn't treated on the same level morally as Nazism. I would recommend looking at his opinion. That's something that I still have not formulated myself, but I think there is some merit to the idea that communism was more of the deaths that came from communism were more of a result of terrible management, and the deaths that came as a result of Nazism were more of a result of direct, intentional extermination. So, whether that holds any water, I'm not sure. But again, like I said, it's an opinion that I have yet to formulate solidly. We got a comment from Paul.
Imagine being upset at the fact that Florida is going to teach that an ideology which killed far more than Nazism is a bad thing. Imagine being as upset at that. Just imagine. Just imagine.
Well, there's a lot of merit to what Osis said, and I think that a lot of these people that are teaching that are aligned with that to some degree. So even further, now here's why I have to question this strategy where DeSantis is implementing this curriculum. Would this be more or less effective than, say, because what we always talk about here, the incentives, okay? What are the incentives? Teachers are incentivized to teach one way or the other based on, their personal preferences or what the market's demanding, whatnot. We need to incentivize more conservative people getting into education so that we don't have to explicitly say, this is what you should teach and this is what you shouldn't teach. That's kind of where I'm a little iffy on this whole thing. Because if you get into the point to where you should say, this is what you should teach and this is what you shouldn't teach, I don't really like that. I think that you should address a couple levels deeper. Ask the question, why aren't we getting more conservatives in education? Why are 95% of our teachers females who voted for Joe Biden? How can we correct that imbalance by looking at what the incentives are that are involved in the decision-making process that where people become teachers or they don't become teachers, and try to get more conservative people in there so that they will naturally teach that communism is bad. So it's kind of like a Band-Aid approach to me. That's how I see it. But and I think overall, probably a net positive, but not the best way to address the problem. It's almost as if, and keep an eye out for this, because look, we got to be critical of both sides here. Keep an eye out for just blatant attention grabs from guys like DeSantis, because is this just a quick and easy grab for attention from him? To say that I'm signing a bill that communism is bad. It seems a little too on the nose, right? Because we all agree that communism is bad. Everyone on the right in America hates communism. They're always blabbing about communism, globalism, all that. We all know, but you got to ask yourself, is it just an attention grab? Is he maybe going for like a presidential run or something? Is it just a PR stunt? You never know, but you have to ask yourself those questions, and that's what I'm here to remind you of, okay? So when you hear articles like that, don't just mindlessly think to yourself, oh yeah, go DeSantis, you're the man. Question it. Still, is it the best way to accomplish what we're trying to achieve? What are the incentives involved? Is this guy just trying to get attention? That's the kind of stuff you should be asking yourself. But overall, again, I think a net benefit for us. What's up, Dave? You're late, but it's cool. Glad you showed up anyway, man. Grab a drink, grab a seat, get comfortable. Doug Master says, Dari says they're hyping up that Delta strain in an effort to get people to get the jab. Yeah, I just saw that today. I'm giving you guys a break from the COVID stuff. We're actually not going to be, I don't have any COVID stories on deck. But that is true. They are pumping out the Delta strain now. As if we aren't aware, or at least you guys are aware, that we were already talking about the fact that they way overhyped the B117. Oh my God, B117's in Colorado. We're all going to die. 2 months later, crickets. Nothing happens. Delta variant, which is the Indian strain, by the way. Let's keep that very clear. I don't want to use their propagandized terms. This is the Indian variant, not Delta. They just wanted you to say Delta because they don't want you to be racist. It's the Indian strain. But, yeah, they are definitely hyping that up. Synergy says, Pol Pot, who killed far less than but a fourth of the population of an entire country. People think socialism is a good idea because they are stupendously ignorant or gifted in special pleading and double think. No, they're just hyper-feminized, and their brains are programmed, despite any kind of facts or evidence or reality, to favor and fight for equality and fairness and safety and things like that. It's a simple problem of unfettered hyper-feminization. Doug Masters, is just responding to a bunch of people. Good, no jab talk. Yep, we're giving you guys a break today. Osa says, we knew they weren't really concerned about COVID when they were kneeling for BLM last summer. You know what's funny is I just saw a story. I know I said I'm not talking about COVID tonight, but I'll give you this one little nugget of hilarity before we move on to the next segment. They were protesting en masse on the streets in Brazil because they were protesting against Bolsonaro, Jair Bolsonaro, the leader there, who is more Trumpian, because of the way that he's handling COVID and the fact that they have so many deaths. Yeah, that's right. I said they're protesting the deaths from the virus by mass gathering in the streets and packing together in close quarters. That's right, yeah. So just, we're not, there's not a lot of, like I said, guys, we already know there's not a lot of principles or consistency on that side of this spectrum here, so. Simon says, apparently not enough people know communism/socialism/Marxism is bad. Well, here's my capstone on the socialism topic before we move on to the next story. The idea to move to communism or socialism is always going to be present. The concept is never going to go away. Even if society were to destroy itself and recreate, you would still have the general concept of socialism and communism in play. Now, the only reason that it's even getting mainstream traction right now in this particular sliver of history is because our collective mass psychology is so tilted towards the feminine side, again, emphasizing fairness, equality, emotionality, that it's accepted. So without that mass hyperfeminization of society that we're seeing right now, socialism would still just be that thing that we kind of laugh at, the thing that we look at in the history books and say, hey, you remember when? But because of our mass psychological state right now, we are more likely to accept and adopt those ideas. What's up, M.A.? Welcome. Haven't seen you in a while. We're going to be talking about the Juneteenth segment in a little bit here. You did not miss that. Policeman killed in Denver yesterday. Shooter was killed by an unnamed person. Oh, we're going to get into some shootings. So let's go to the stereo comment and then jump on to our next topic here from Paul.
The inner Malicite in me, Michael Malisakalite. I hate to agree with you about the question when someone like DeSantis does this, but it's absolutely true. The real 4D chess move to fight, fire with fire isn't to, it's like, okay, we're going to make the schools teach the things that are actually right-wing or whatever. It would be just school choice on steroids. It would solve the problem, if not overnight. Yep. Overnight, civilizationally speaking, one generation.
Right.
The big thing is the country is a giant oligarchy. The government is vast and overwhelming. the public sector basically dominates the private sector. So make the public sector straight up give money to make pay parents to be teachers. That would solve it.
So I think that's generally accurate. But then you got to ask yourself, because my mind always goes to the incentives, right? Does the public at large, do mass corporations, international corporations, trillion-dollar corporations, have any incentive to have a smarter population? Oh, are they incentivized to help make people smarter? And that's an easy no. No, they are not. No. In fact, they're probably incentivized to make people stupider, because when they're stupid, you can manipulate them with commercials that have rainbows and 2 gay black dads and lesbians everywhere. And, that's how they can manipulate you to get you to buy their products and to keep you emotionally malleable so they can get you to basically do whatever they want. So it's a tough call, man. That's still a big question, is how do we really implement kind of a school choice model that allows more. We need consequences for the educators for poor performance. That's what we need. Let's see. MA says, much love to the chat. Yes, we do have one of the greatest chats of all time on YouTube right here at the Weekly Narrative, by the way, guys. And we are getting some buffering. It's true, but you know how we do it here. We're just pushing through it. Pushing through. Let's jump to the next story. If you guys want to listen to the show, we are not getting buffered on stereo, by the way. Just a little note there for you. Let's see. Okay. Oh, man, so many good topics to jump to. Let's talk about another contentious topic here. This is transgenders in sports. Now, I just got done talking about the hyperfeminization of society. But in an ironic twist, what we're actually seeing is the destruction of the feminine, destruction of the women. And one of the first places that they're going to be removed from is none other than sports. Sports, physical competition, Olympics, you name it, anything sports related. They're gone, guys, because the transgenders have entered the arena, and I'm sorry, but they just have more testosterone. There's really nothing you can do about it. So this is another question that I'm going to pose to you guys, kind of a discussion topic. I've listened to a few people who would argue that transgender people should be able to compete against whatever in sports, but I just want to present to you some statistics on some of the top transgender athletes to get your brain working a little bit, because this hasn't been really going on very long. We haven't had the ability to see this data, gather this data, really get a good picture of what's going on. But now we do, thanks to some people on Twitter who made some threads and allowed us to get these statistics. This is from somebody named DJ Calligraphy, just to give you an example of what we're dealing with here in the transgender sports world. Are women being erased? That is the question we are examining here. In 2016, a man named Craig Telfer was ranked number 200th in, I'm assuming, running, sprinting, something along those lines. In 2017, he's ranked 390th among men, remember. In 2018, he transitions to female. And in 2019, CC Telfer is a national champion. That's right, folks. That's right, yes. Ranked 390 to national champion overnight by simply saying, hey, I identify as a female. Now, do you think that's fair? This is the kind of stuff that we're looking to address here, because this is the point of the conversation where the leftists and the trans advocates and all that kind of stuff, they don't want to get to this point of the conversation. They don't ever want to talk about the nitty-gritty of what happens, the result of your morally superior decisions that you make. Yeah, women, transgender should be able to compete against women. But what does that really translate into in reality? And it's stuff like this. Now, if you think, oh, Jeremy, well, this is a pretty crazy example you've got there, but I mean, this is just one example. Well, you'd be wrong, because I've got a whole compilation ready to go for you. From, as soon as I can get the window to transfer. From a guy named Rick X for Nutmeg on Twitter. No idea what that name means or why you would ever name yourself that, but here's a thread on some of just the males who've gone on to win women's sports events, including how they performed in men's category before they started identifying as women. Now, this was something that I was vaguely aware of before I saw this thread, but I had no idea. I had absolutely no clue what was really going on over here, how bad it really was. Let's take a look. CC Telfer, we already talked about old CC, ranked 390th among male NCAA Division II athletes, transitions, and then is qualifying for the Olympics as a woman. From 1998 to 2012, Laurel Hubbard fails to qualify for a single international men's tournament as a professional weightlifter. In 2013, Hubbard transitions. And from 2014 to 2021, Hubbard qualifies for 11 international women's tournaments, including the Olympics. So, I mean, the difference between you not even qualifying for an event and then going on to win or qualifying for the Olympics is a simple sentence, folks. I identify as a woman. Hannah Monsey made 22 appearances for the Australian men's handball team, scoring 0, a smashing 0 goals. I think is that what they would say in Australia? Smashing. In 2015, they transition. I'm stumbling over my own words as I try to describe what's happening here, because this is how twisted reality is. In 2018, amid controversy, Monsey is allowed to play 6 times for the Australian women's handball team, scoring 23 goals. Oh, man. So she played 22 games, 0 goals, transitioned, played 6 times, scored 23 goals. It's almost as if, look at those quads. Jesus, dude. I mean, I'm surprised he didn't just steamroll those chicks on the field. In 2015, pre-2015, golfer Haley Davidson won 0 men's tournaments. In fact, he probably didn't even qualify for any tournaments at all. Not even qualified. Transitions in 2015, and then in 2021, Davidson becomes the first transgender to win a women's professional golf tournament. Shocking. And we'll do one more, because I know you guys are getting the point by now, but I wanted to give you some examples of how much this is really going on and how many different sports this is actually affecting. In 2019, Mary Gregory, who had transitioned as an adult, took up professional women's weightlifting and, at Gregory's first tournament, won all 9 events at the 100% Raw Weightlifting Federation competition, breaking 4 world records in the process. Amazing. Now, she is either the greatest women's weightlifter of all time that just happened to come out of absolutely nowhere, or it's just that dudes are inherently way stronger than women. So this should at least get you asking some questions. Why? Where are the women? Ladies, where you at? Ladies, you know you're being erased, right? You understand what's happening here. You are no longer going to be able to win or even participate, really, in any of these sports. Where is the crying? I need to see some crying. That's a he, not a she, says MA in chat. I didn't say it, YouTube. My chat said it. Don't ban me. Osa says they used to say he's a man amongst boys. Now it's a man amongst girls. Yes, so many jokes to be made here. Let's see. She has torn ligaments lifting due to hormones. Oh, yeah. Well, see, that's the nice thing about it is the concoction of hormones that you get to go on as you transition. Now, what we're not seeing and what you didn't see in any of those stories is any females transitioning to the men's sports and then dominating in men's sports. I wonder why that is. Only women bleed, says PJ Fan. You know, PJ Fan, that is misogynistic, I think. Last I heard. I don't know. I'm just word association at this point. Misogynistic. There are great opportunities for memes in these Olympics, People need only step through the fire. That's right, man. This is what they're, this is where we live now. We live in a reality where it's just absurd. It's funny, but it's sad at the same time. And for those who are daring enough, you can go out like me and you can point this stuff out on a live stream and you can laugh about it, which is what we're doing. But it's also why, we're getting throttled by Susan Wojcicki, and we already have strikes on this channel because it is risky. There's a lot of risk involved. Culturally not accepted. Have they canceled that Aerosmith song yet? Dude looks like a lady. I think they tried to cancel Mrs. Doubtfire, says MA. I would not be shocked. And it does make you wonder, how is history going to perceive this? So I'm a big picture guy. Okay, so I'm thinking about the past. I'm thinking about the present. I'm thinking about where the president is in context with the whole chain of history. Think about 500, 1,000 years from now in kind of the same manner that we look back at the first Greek Olympics and we think to ourselves, wow, that was so weird how they were all naked when they did the Olympics, or whatever we think about what they did with the Olympics. People are going to look back on this and they're going to be pretty confused as to how a society would not only but encourage men participate with the women, smash all their records, just make them look like absolute jokes, and then take that entirely seriously and play along with it. It does beg the question, is there a point in time, hopefully in the near future, when all this stuff kind of gets erased? Are we going to undo this? Is there a Control Z for this, in the future, shortly, hopefully? King Xenomorph says, all the news journalists speaking out, really amazing. Project Veritas. Yeah, that's one story that I have not really looked into, but apparently a bunch of journalists are coming out about being censored on particular topics, coming out to Project Veritas. I will look into that, and maybe we will talk about that on Saturday. Dave says, all hail the patriarchy. Men are now ruling all sports. And that, therein lies the irony. Let's see. Let's go to Paul. Stereo.
Oh my god, this just occurred to me. If some mad lad-based Jap man could, at the Olympic Games, when that man inevitably wins the fucking weightlifting competition, if Aerosmith, dude looked like a lady, popped up on the fucking intercom, that would make the entire year. Everything before could be terrible and the world could die the next month, but that would be great.
You know what? I think there's some guys / she's or whatever they want to call themselves that would be cool with that, and maybe we can convince one of them to try to pull that off. Hostess.
Yeah, I used to be against this, but women's sports sucks. Nobody likes watching them. The WNBA wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for the NBA propping them up. And I mean, it might even be better than men's sports because it's a freak show on top of sports. But I don't know. There'll probably be virtue signaling and holding up their fists in solidarity and all that other bullshit. But maybe it's not going to be so bad. I mean, it'd be like Mr. Garrison. We went to Janet Garrison and Scissor Me Timbers and all that stuff. Just for the lulz.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point, man. This is exactly what you would expect to see when you live in a futuristic dystopia. You turn on the TV and there's just a bunch of mutants doing weird sports and, doing stuff to each other on the TV. That's exactly what you'd expect to see. You turn on the TV in Blade Runner. This is the kind of stuff you'd expect to see. Transgender Olympics and stuff. Like, mutant Olympics, really? I mean, let's be honest. It's the mutant Olympics. But it could be much more entertaining. So let's not neglect the potential capitalistic value of exploiting these transgenders for entertainment value. Okay, there's some good Coca-Cola commercials you can run over those ads. There's plenty of opportunity there for a capitalist society to benefit from that. So let's not get rid of it entirely. Let's give it a chance. I'll say that. Next segment of the night. Now, this isn't COVID related. Well, it's not COVID story, but it is somewhat COVID related. We're going to be talking about airlines banning passengers. Now, there's been a lot of conspiracy theories, a lot of questions raised in the last year and a half or so around the government, what the government's up to with things like passports and stuff like that. If they're going to be implementing any kind of authoritarian controls or, dare I say, parallel societies as a result of, say, the vaccinated or the unvaccinated. But the question for you is, what number would you need to see? What number of people need to be separated from society before you are going to be convinced that we are forming involuntary parallel societies? That's what the question is here. It's not a COVID story. It's a story about parallel societies, okay? And we could talk about it all day long, but you need to show me some stories of this actually happening, and you need to show me some statistics about, how many people have been separated from society as a result of these measures. And this is a question that you need to ask yourself, and this is a question that I ask myself. How many people do I need to see? What kind of numbers do I need to see before I am truly convinced that we are going to a point beyond return where we are separating society into different castes, tiers, classes, whatever you want to call it, whatever kind of terminology you want to use? And that is the question that this next story is examining from ABC 10 from Sacramento, because I still get a lot of news feeds from Sacramento despite the fact that I'm no longer there. 3,000 passengers banned from airlines in the past year. So quick read of the room here. 3,000 people banned from flying from different airlines. Is that higher or lower than you expected that number to be? In chat, let me know. Higher or lower? I want to know what you guys' expectations were, because for me, this was higher. I didn't expect 3,000 people to be banned. I thought maybe, like 200, something like that. Admittedly, we did see a lot of videos of people over the last year and a half, arguing about masks or whatnot on these airlines. But airlines and flight crew unions are calling for federal prosecutions against unruly and violent passengers after a major uptick in confrontations. Continuing from the ABC 10 article, air travel can be difficult in the best of times with cramped planes, screaming babies, flight delays, and short tempers. Throw in a pandemic and the anxiety level can raise quickly. This has led to confrontations with flight attendants and other unruly behavior, including occasional fights that get captured and replayed endlessly on social media. Airlines have reported about 3,000 cases of disruptive passengers since January 1st, according to a spokesman from the FAA, which began tracking it this year. About 2,300 of those incidents involved passengers who refused to obey the federal requirement to wear a mask. So that is the nitty-gritty of the 3,000 number. Because I know what you're thinking. 3,000 people, maybe they're just getting in fights or being unruly, whatever. No, 2,300 of those were specifically because they refused to obey the requirement to wear a face mask. So, again, I ask you that question. What number do you need to see before you're convinced that we are forming parallel societies? Because what's going to happen? What's going to happen? COVID's only been around for a year and a half. Year and a half. Now, in that year and a half, we've banned 2,300 people from airlines. Extrapolate that out 10 years. Extrapolate that out 20 years, 30 years. We know already from 9/11 and the residual effects of that there are going to be protections in place that are going to last for eternity until America dies out. So, are we going to be? Is this a thing where we're just going to see 5,000 people a year getting banned off airlines? What happens after 10 years? People can't fly, and are those controls going to expand? Are they going to contract? I think we all know the answer on that one. Likely not. But, it should get you thinking, because this is, 2,300 people that can't fly anymore because they refuse to wear the mask. Nick Fuentes was banned from flying. Yeah, he was. I don't know exactly why, but I think we can venture a guess on that one since he's a right-wing personality. A controversial one at that. PJ Fan says, I can still fly, but banned from Twitter for calling the Wuhan virus the Wuhan virus. Well, yeah, that's it's okay, man. You don't need Twitter anyway. And yeah, the funny thing about that is you can just make another account. Ben Savage says, buy land outside of the city. It will provide you with the safety when the BLM and the vaxxers come for you. Yes, Ben Savage is right on the money with that one. I think that should be the long-term goal for anyone who's really concerned about this. If you're really concerned and you want an answer, well, what do we do? Just get out of the cities. Get out of the reach of the institutional powers that reside in cities. Cities are like, they kind of have like an aura emanating from them of insanity, where schools and police, universities, you name it, all the institutions that reside within these cities can impose their control over you and your life, which is essentially the root cause of all the problems that we face in society today. So I wanted to pose that question to you guys. How many people do you need to see banned before you're convinced that we're going to be forming parallel societies? Let's jump to stereo. We got a guy named Alexander Pinto. Let's see what he's got to say.
I think society, I don't even think the US has a society. It has many societies within one government. Do I think those societies are separated? Yes. Do I have studies to back me up? Yes. Google separations of societies. It's optional segregation, meaning the societies, meaning that every group of people divides itself. Even within those groups of people, they divide based on class, meaning based on beliefs and religion. But yeah, that's my take on it.
This guy gets it, and I don't know what you mean by you've got studies, because it's really apparent, and I agree with you. There are multiple levels of parallel societies present within American society. And actually, there's a really interesting book that just came out that I did not read, but I heard somebody else refer to, with the relationship between mosques and in England and London, and how these particular mosques, there's a bunch of them throughout the city, but each one of them actually has an independent, cohesive society that really doesn't interact with the rest of London at all. There's small groups of people that exist within London, but within their own parallel society within London. And, parallel society is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, my proposed solution to a lot of these problems that we're seeing is to form your own parallel societies on your own terms, such as buying your own land, starting a town, starting a community, things like that. Osis says, so they're cells. Yeah, you could use that terminology. They're cells. They're definitely cells. But the caller was exactly right. There are levels of society at religious levels, various community levels, interest levels even, age groups even. I mean, even a retirement home is a parallel society, okay? Now, I think when I say parallel society, people think like, oh, you're starting an entire country within a country. That's not going to work. No. Societies are all along the spectrum from big to small, and with varying degrees of definition and criteria. So, but yeah, thanks for that call. Let's go to Paul.
It is all a big joke. Rome is burning, rearranging the chairs on the sinking Titanic, and here we are bitching about the, the streams buffering. It is the worst, the literal worst. Also, the country's burning down. But, that's a problem for later.
Well, in my particular sphere of the world, I have to evaluate, is the country burning down? Is that a bigger problem than my stream buffering? The urgency of one is arguably greater than the other. MA says, I'm happy to be in a parallel society with the COVID skeptics rather than the mainstream COVID lunatics. Happy to be in that cast. There you go. See, that is another example of a parallel society. The two movies on one screen is a method that we use to refer to that. But yeah, that's another way that America is split into two societies right there. Now, take, for example, Texas, where we're throwing rager parties at the clubs downtown for the last 3 months with no masks. and California, who is just now starting to open up like the nightlife and stuff, and concerts and music events, but you still have to wear masks. Two completely different parallel societies within one society. Folks, if you haven't already, hit that like button. We're at the halfway mark. 8:02. For those of you who are wondering, Delaney's out today. Still on vacation. Maybe she's watching this right now. But she had some traffic issues on the way back into Sacramento, so she could not make the stream. It's okay. I think she'll be back on Saturday. Let's go to Alexander. He's got some follow-ups.
Based on what you said about the vaccines, yes, I do think people are being separated based on who's vaccinated and who is not. People who are vaccinated have certain privileges, like in supermarkets and pharmacies and malls and stuff like that. Versus the people who are not vaccinated who have to mandatory wear a mask. That's one of the reasons why I like Republican states a little better than Democrat states, because Republican states leave you alone a bit more than Democrat states do.
Yeah, funny you say that, because if we didn't live in a society where everyone had ADHD and we could actually look back at some of the things that news outlets said, some of the things that public figures have said regarding their predictions on how states would turn out. For example, Texas, who lifted all state mandates regarding masks, any kind of COVID restrictions, they lifted them all several weeks ago. And what happened when that occurred? Everyone came out. Governor Newsom, fellow governor, came out and said things like, oh, this is catastrophic. They're going to feel the pain. This is going to be disastrous for the entire state of Texas. Have we revisited those predictions at all since they have been made? Because I can tell you, I'm looking around here, and no catastrophes, no world's ending, lots of parties with people not wearing masks. But yes, you're absolutely correct. The Republican states are absolutely... to harken right back to the first story we covered of the night, the principle of Governor Abbott sticking to the principle of less government control over your life, not passing this new animal rights bill or whatever it was. It's exactly the same thing. Osis.
Good news for California. You're in San Francisco here. My buddy that's a bartender says that you can come in without a mask and do whatever you want. And honor system regarding the vaccine. So
nice.
They're not going to check you. They're not going to try and card your vaccine. Hopefully it's due to HIPAA laws or something like that. But basically everywhere around here is no mask if you don't want to. Honor system on the vaccine. So I'm unfortunately having to look at people's ugly faces again, but I'll take that over those stupid masks that don't do shit.
Yeah, that is. It's a little strange. A little bit of a culture shock to see people's faces again. You can see a smile. You can see facial expressions. It's nice. I like it. But the HIPAA thing and the question of whether
Southwest Airlines
whoa,
flight.
hold on. Excuse me, ABC 10. You do not autoplay while I'm streaming. Okay, sorry about that. The question really is, and this is what these people have been crying about the whole time, is, how are we going to know they're actually vaccinated? The Republicans are just going to say they're vaccinated and they're not actually vaccinated. Well, that's the biggest question mark in that arena right now. How are they going to validate? And I don't think HIPAA really applies, because HIPAA is more of like a healthcare provider requirement. Now, you as an individual, you're not a healthcare provider. You don't have a duty necessarily to keep, like, you can't sue yourself for disclosing medical information about yourself. It's a healthcare provider. If they were to go to whatever your healthcare provider that you got vaccinated by and demand that you were vaccinated, then that would be a HIPAA thing. But you presenting a vaccination card, it's not really, I don't think that falls under HIPAA. But again, we'll have to see how that plays out. Holly says, Florida last spring break. Those kids partying. Yeah, exactly. Another perfect example of exactly what I'm talking about. People were saying that look at all these teens in Florida having parties on the beach, in the sun, having so much fun. And I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but they are all going to die. And they never revisited those predictions. They never said, hey, well, you know what? All those kids in Florida, turns out there was no mass death. But we do not live in a society that actually evaluates the accuracy of the predictions that we make. We just continue on as if nothing happened. Because, again, remember, it's all about the mass psychology. People have crazy ADD in society today, just on a mass scale. They don't have the ability to keep that many narratives, that many timelines, that many chains of custody relating these stories in their head. So, of course, they just go by the wayside. Trudeau is trying to figure out a secure way to get vax passports onto your devices. Interesting. Well, yeah, there's a whole... I don't want to say conspiracy theory because it's not really a conspiracy theory, but there's a whole conversation to have there about the fact that there's been talk regarding like digital banking, digital electronic health records, digital identities being implemented. They're kind of an all-in-one solution that'll have, well, all your financial information, your financial accounts in one spot. It'll have your health information in one spot. It'll have all your ID in one spot digitally. And now, is it a coincidence? And this is breaking news. Breaking news, hot off the press, folks. You heard it here first. JP Morgan is implementing a blockchain banking solution. That's correct. Now, I got to admit, that's about the extent of it that I know because, like I said, it's breaking. It's so breaking that I don't even really know much about it. But when a bank as big as JP Morgan is implementing a digital blockchain banking solution, hot off the heels of conversations about how we're going to link all of our banking information into digital passports, makes you ask questions. Makes you ask some questions. I'll say that. MA says a parallel airline for the parallel society. Well, if capitalism is allowed to do its thing, that will be the result. You will have parallel societies that only cater to people that reside in that society. For example, if I go to the mall, I want to go to a store, a restaurant. I'm out with my friends. I want to go out and get some food. There's two restaurants right next to each other. One of them has a mask requirement. One of them does not have a mask requirement to get in. I don't really want to wear a mask. Or a vaccine requirement. Sorry, vaccine requirements. I'm not vaccinated, for example, in this hypothetical story, but my friends are vaccinated. Well, we can't go to the store that requires people to be vaccinated, so I have to go to the store where they do not require vaccinated people. So, in a way, capitalism will kind of sort that out. And I think if enough people get banned from airlines, you will see airlines that will service people specifically that have been banned off of other airlines. I mean, this is theoretically speaking. Later, Dave. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. Aren't they pushing tracking with phone updates? Yes, Stalking Horse. Actually, we just talked about that on the last stream where states like Massachusetts are actually pushing out involuntary installations of COVID tracking apps onto your phone. So if you're in Massachusetts, you might want to take a look at your phone, see if you got an app on there. I forgot what it's called. Wait, hold on. I can look at my show notes from last week and tell you what it's called. Mass Notify. Look for the Mass Notify app on your phone. If you got that, you got involuntarily installed. So that's going to be fun. Just the digital front opens up a lot of possibilities for control over the people. So as good as technology is, you got to keep in mind this stuff can be used for evil as well. Okay, you guys want to do the Juneteenth story? This is so stupid. Oh my god! Shout out to Corey, you sent me this story. This is a now there's two angles to the story depending on what your political affiliation is. If you're on the left, well, let's say you could look at this as a mass shooting story. This is a mass shooting story, okay, folks? Because this was a mass shooting. There were at least 6 people shot in Oakland during Juneteenth celebrations. And one of them died. That's right. So this was a mass shooting. 1 person died, 5 were injured. That qualifies as a mass shooting, but we all know why this wasn't covered in the media because, well, as you'll see in the video that I'm about to show you, everyone involved, and it's Oakland, so I already gave away the answer. Everyone involved is black. So let's take a look. I'm going to just kind of present this without any commentary. And now keep in mind, we are just celebrating the implementation of a new holiday that celebrates black people specifically. Okay, keep that in mind as you're watching this video. We're celebrating a new holiday for black people, to celebrate black people. We're going to Oakland now for a video aftermath of the shooting that happened where 1 was dead and 5 were injured. Enjoy this footage. For those of you on stereo who are not watching the video, what we're looking at is an ambulance that is treating people who were shot with a firearm, being surrounded by people who are not white. They're dancing on the ambulance, or as they would call it, an ambulance. I want to be culturally relevant here. Jumping on top of the ambulance, throwing footballs, continuing their partying as if nothing happened, laughing. They're all laughing, they're all smiling as the EMTs attempt to get their patient into the back of the ambulance. Now we got a woman, multiple women on the hood of the car dancing. Completely surrounded this ambulance, by the way, completely surrounded. There's a guy with a Santa hat on in the middle of the street. Just absolute. Well, I told you I would present it without commentary, so I'm not going to add any opinion on that. But that is what Juneteenth celebrations look like in Oakland, folks. Okay, remember, we're proud to be black. Black culture is something that we should celebrate. Okay, that's why we're making Juneteenth a holiday, because we want to celebrate black people and black culture. Do I need to add any commentary? I don't think I do. Now, I got in a lot of trouble on Twitter for the mere suggestion that I don't think we have a racism problem in America. I don't think people dislike black people. I think what most people dislike is African American culture. Now, the reason why people get so upset when you even suggest that the problem is the culture and not the race is because, first of all, it removes the entire victim narrative. It allows, it puts the suggestion out there that it may have something to do with personal choice or voluntarily following that culture. But it also kind of points out the fact that black Americans don't, they act a lot differently than black people that just come from other countries. And if you point that out, oh my God, catastrophic surges of reports and stuff on Twitter that you will receive. Shooting, twerking, and jogging, says Osis. Yeah, those are the three, apparently, the 3 main hobbies of these people. Summertime in certain neighborhoods supersedes any and all holidays. Synergy says, sighs deeply with audible exasperation. Yes, twerking on the ambulance. That's right, Caitlin. Thank you for pointing that out. They were twerking on the ambulance, people, where one of their own community members was just shot. Well, presumably 6 of them were shot. 1 of them was killed. Now, contrast what you saw in that video with what white people will tell you about how you're supposed to feel about black people getting shot. Okay, because what is the narrative? Oh my God. Like I said, there's so many different angles you could take with the story. You could go gun control. We've got a major issue with gun control in this country, as we see from this footage from Oakland, California. People are getting shot left and right. Nope, don't hear that. We've got a major problem with black-on-black violence, gang violence, and urban communities in America. as shown by this footage in Oakland, California. Nope, don't hear that story. What is the story that we actually hear from this? If you look at the Twitter comments on stuff like this, you're going to see stuff like, "Oh, why do these white people always only share the videos of black people acting bad? It's almost like they're trying to tell us something." Nope. No, those...
It happened on a Southwest Airlines flight, and according to witnesses, centered around...
CBS 10 is just relentless. It wants to autoplay. But the white people will tell you that you're racist for sharing videos like this that show black people in a bad light. What these white people refuse to acknowledge is that the people that share these videos are also sharing a lot of videos of white people acting retarded too. Going out at protests, rioting, burning stuff down. They probably share a lot more of videos of white people acting bad than they do of black people acting bad. But of course, anytime somebody shares one video of black people doing anything that's out of the ordinary, "Oh my God, why are you sharing this? You're racist for sharing this or spreading this kind of..." But Jesus, I mean, come on, people. Do you think there is a problem with the culture? Maybe? Can we even just throw a maybe on the end? I'll be happy to throw a maybe on the end. I don't have to say a definitive. Let's just throw a maybe on the end and work with that, okay? Can we work with the maybe? Doug Masters says, "Send more paramedics." Yes. Doug also says, "Juneteenth is lame, but it also pisses me off because they are wasting a ton of tax dollars to give holiday pay to government workers." Yes. One less day for the Postal Service to F up mail delivery. It's a little weird when you can vote to give yourself a holiday. But hey, I'm just here to point out the inconsistencies in reality. Not really much I could do about it. Let's go to Stereo. I heard a comment come in over there. We got 4 Stereo comments lined up, actually. Let's see, 2 previously from the Alex guy, probably about the previous topic. Maybe we'll go back to those.
I waited very patiently to read these. 2 headlines. NBC News, number 1. More black people died in traffic deaths in 2020 than any other racial group, even though Americans drove less in the pandemic. Experts say this is not new.
Nice.
Okay, the other headline. Black people are more likely to die in traffic accidents. COVID made it worse. NBC again.
See, when I say you guys can share stories, give me content for the show, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't have a panopticon that I can sit in and see all the news out there. I would love to see those stories and talk about that. It does make you ask some questions. Makes you ask some questions.
I can't believe how oppressed all those people were. Those women twerking their chains off. So brave. You would think that laughing as people get wheeled away as they're dead or dying.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that they'd have some reverence for that. But I guess it only counts when white people do it.
Mm-hmm.
You saw what happened with the Puerto Rican couple, I imagine, in New York. I guess they didn't fly the right flag or something. The dude got smoked. And I think the girl's in critical condition. I don't know if she got out or not. But, you know, jogger's gonna jog.
It's funny you say that, Moses, because the next story on the lineup is that one exactly. Now, we've got this crazy mutant Lori Lightfoot out of Chicago telling everyone how to live their lives and saying all kind of wild stuff in her press conferences and her meetings and stuff. Have you seen some of the stuff that she says in her meetings with her staff? There's like notes out there of the stuff that she says and the stuff that she writes in her emails. It's bad. Definitely not doing any favors for the case that mental illness is highly correlated with the sexual degeneracy. Because she's a lesbian, as you guys may or may not know, if you couldn't tell from just looking at her. And in Lori Lightfoot's Chicago, we see constant slaughtering of people in her city. And all minorities, by the way. All minorities. Minorities are being slaughtered at alarming rates in Chicago. And the black mayor is doing next to nothing about it. And you would think that the leftists would have a question about that. Like, hey, we got this black lesbian mayor. I don't know how much more intersectional you could get. And her city is burning down. Black people are getting slaughtered left and right, murdered in the streets in cold blood, literally. Because what I'm about to show you guys, I have to say, is incredibly, well, it's not very detailed. You're not going to see high resolution, but this is I'm going to show a video on the screen of a man getting shot and his wife getting shot in the streets of Humboldt Park in Chicago, because this is what's actually happening. Now, I got to point out that the reason things like the Covington kids hoax, which, as you remember, was the school children on the steps of the Capitol getting harassed by an Indian man, the reason why things like that go viral is because video is captured of these events that goes viral. The reason things like George Floyd, the reason why you even know his name, is because somebody recorded a video and shared it on Twitter. Now, the fact that those stories can trend on Twitter, which are, questionable at best as far as the intent behind what you're seeing, the actual reality behind what you're seeing, and the fact that stories like what I'm about to show you get no traction at all in the media despite very blatant and clear intent, will tell you that social media and these media companies are entirely dominated by the left, which is why, well, let's just get into it. I've preambled enough. This is a video from Humboldt County, and update, by the way, the woman who was in critical condition did die today. So you're about to witness the murder of a mother and a father in the streets of Chicago. These are minorities from Cuba, I believe. So they were some kind of altercation in their car. You can see the flag flying there on the car. It's actually a pretty nice car. But there's some kind of altercation happening where they're pulling these people outside the car. Now, I think it kind of goes without saying that, for those of you who aren't watching the video, everyone involved is black. And we see somebody, there's some kind of shots fired because you can see everybody ducks. And then we see a man in a white shirt turn and fire roughly 7 shots directly, pretty much point blank, into the 2 parents who are on the ground already dying. And I have to show you this, as brutal as it is, because this is what happens when you get to, I guess, this is, cities are cancer, people. Cities are cancer. And when you have a city that is managed by a mutant, this kind of stuff happens, just not in broad daylight, but to the point to where we have a camera from a facility nearby that's pointing directly at it, and we can capture and see this kind of stuff happen in real time. This is it's a slaughter. It's not, when you hear about shootings on TV, it's like, oh, a shooting happened in Chicago again. You think to yourself, oh, again, a shooting? Yeah, okay. Well, it doesn't really have any resonance in your head, because to you think, oh, shooting, whatever. When you see it happen like this, you see the slaughter happen, you can understand the degree of violence, the lack of humanity that's present in these cities, in these black communities. Sorry, I didn't Photoshop the video to make all those people black. Every single person in the video is black. And this kind of stuff happens every single, well, I was going to say every single weekend, but probably happens every single day in cities like Chicago. People are being brutally slaughtered on the streets of your cities while you're busy crying and complaining about whatever mutant problems that you think you want everyone to care about, masks, this, or white supremacists. Oh, we had Proud Boys were holding a demonstration in our city, and this is a big issue to us. No, this is a big issue for you. This is the kind of stuff that they don't care at all about. So, show us more cities. Were there other Juneteenth celebrations? There are plenty, but nothing as bad as that one that I've seen so far. Lightfoot is the Rona destroyer, though. Exactly. Remember, folks, this is the same mayor who dressed up in a costume, the Rona destroyer costume. Okay, to combat the deadly pandemic of the coof. Meanwhile, stuff like this is happening every single week in her city. But yeah, Osa says, I couldn't find the full video. That was an execution. Yes, it was an execution. And again, father and a mother. So now that kid has no parents. They were Puerto Rican. Yes, thank you. Okay, Puerto Rican. That was a Puerto Rican flag. I don't know my flags well enough. But it kind of makes you ask the question, did they misinterpret what that flag was? Did they even know what that flag was? Why did this thing start? There's a lot of questions to be asked, but the fact that this kind of stuff is even happening is all you need. Is enough for you to understand that this city is cancer. Chicago is a cancer tumor on society. And the cancer tumor is being run by a mutant. Is there a coincidence? I don't know. I'll let you answer that question. Doug Master says, I looked at the population of U.S. cities. I would never have guessed Houston is the 4th largest U.S. city. Yes. The interesting thing about Houston is the fact that it is actually super diverse and actually insanely massive. I was shocked to see how massive this city is. And we don't see stuff like that happening here. JC Stack says, arm yourselves, people. MA says, I almost forgot to like the video. Good job, MA. I'm glad you remembered. Everyone else, you better like that video. Let's get the likes up on that. Get the likes up. Come on. I know you like this content. I put my neck out there talking about this kind of stuff on YouTube. You know this is not allowed. Pimp my sniper. Is that our Australian correspondent? I don't know. He says, Sasha Johnson, Britain BLM leader, was shot at a party by a black gang member. The painful irony, yes. And the media tried to... So for those who aren't aware, a black woman, one of the leaders of BLM in Britain, was shot at a party. Now, the initial reports didn't mention anything about her party. But as more information came out, the initial reports of, black leader shot by, black BLM leader... They were trying to paint her as a martyr, right? That's all how they want to pay it. Eventually, as the more and more media came out, more information came out, she was shot by a black gang member at a party. Probably not too dissimilar from what we saw with the footage of the ambulance. And the fact that they just try to paint these people off as heroes or martyrs all the time is quite hilarious. So many great stereo calls tonight, says MA. I agree. Let's see. Alexander Pinto has a follow-up.
Yeah, I do agree that there is discrimination against white folks, especially white men and like white conservative women. They really don't care about the liberal white women. They just hate on the conservative white women. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do agree with that.
Well, see, it's because the liberal women are their main method of controlling everybody else. Because what happens when you control the women? Well, if you got the women under control, then you've got the men under control as well. At least the weak, pathetic, beta male, blue pill simps who are doing anything, including calling themselves male feminists, to get the females' attention. So you control the females, guess what? You control the society. And that's where we're at right now, where you've got guys like the guy who we talked to on Stereo a couple of shows back who had like feminist and vegan in his profile. Comes in here talking about how he wants, us to follow Scandinavian models of economy because it's more fair, which is the exact feminine line that you're supposed to use. Did she die yet? If you're talking about the woman in the video, yes, she did die today, unfortunately. She was in critical condition, and now she died. So now some of you are going to be angry after seeing that, and I understand that. That's kind of why I had to show you this, because I want you to keep in mind what that gut-sinking feeling that you got when you watch that. And anytime you hear stories about a shooting that happened in Baltimore or Philadelphia or Chicago or any of these inner cities that you hear stories about all the time, but you hear about the shooting, but it doesn't really mean much. When you hear stories of those shootings happening, I want you to remember that gut-sinking feeling that you felt when you watched this, because that is what's happening. That is the reality of, and unless you see it, unless you experience it, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't impact you the same way. So you have to eventually, sometimes you gotta see this kind of stuff to realize what's actually going on and understand the impact that has. Respect the pronouns. Jeremy, super lesbian. She's a super lesbian. I didn't know. Wouldn't shock me though. Yes, Holly, women have the vagina power is exactly it. That's you put it in a slightly more cruel way than I did, but yes, that's exactly correct. JC Steck, people are fed up. People are about fed up. It's not going to get pretty. Not going to be pretty. Well, here's a question. And this is why I advocate for the strategy that I advocate. Because take a situation like this where you've got these inner cities that are crumbling, cancerous, boiling, festering, open sores on society. There are people out there who say, oh, yeah, no, we need to fix those. We need to dump a bunch of money into that. We need to change the policies. We need to do the XYZ. We need to fix. Okay, that's one approach. Or what is the danger to you? What's the risk profile to you of just walking away, of leaving the cities, buying some land, buying a house in rural America, leaving that? That's the flip side of the coin. Because if you live in that society, if you live in Chicago and you're seeing this stuff happen, you're hearing gunshots outside your house, you're hearing the police cars every single day, you have some options. Of course, the most immediate thing that comes to your mind is, well, I live in this community, I live in this neighborhood, how could I fix this? Well, people get stuck in that mindset. I think people get stuck at that point. How can I fix this? They get stuck there. Because if we're really looking at how, efficient use of your time and energy and resources, a lot of times trying to fix situations like that is not the answer. Leaving that situation. Remember, now it's just Chicago. Speaking of parallel societies, Chicago is a society within America as a city. You have the option to leave that society. Just keep that in mind when you're debating whether or not we can fix this or how to fix this or whether or not we should fix this. Analogous to cancer, the way that you kill a tumor is by cutting off the blood supply to it. Okay? Keep that in mind. Doug Masters says in YouTube chat, don't forget that tampons belong in the men's bathroom too. Men bleed too. Yes, of course, exactly. If I go into a bathroom and I don't see tampons, I get upset. I look for the manager immediately. I need a lesson on Telegram. Okay, yeah. Guys, we do have a Telegram link in the description of the chat. If you want to join my Telegram for backup communications, if I go down on YouTube, that will be the channel that we use. With that being said, as we're talking about a few risky things here tonight, let's move on to the next topic of the night, which is directly in line with the recurring theme of the show, which is the hyperfeminization of society and the relationship between men and women. I want to share with you guys the results of a new study that just came out regarding the effects of prenatal testosterone. I know what you're thinking. This isn't a biology podcast, Jeremy. What are you talking about? Prenatal testosterone? Prenatal androgens? How does this affect what you're talking about at all? Well, let me guide you through it. Actually, you know what? I did skip a couple of chats from Osis. Let me jump to one of those real quick before we move on.
There was a white progressive by the name of Richard Tate for the Democracy Preservation Initiative, who said that those people deserve to die because he was so stupid he thought the Puerto Rican flag was the Confederate flag. And anyone that has the Confederate flag should be dragged out of their car and shot.
Yep.
Good job. These are the types of people that are different. Preserving our democracy. What a joke.
That's a great point, actually. And that, it's a whole different thing that I didn't actually go off on that story is this is low IQ pandemic, folks. What you saw is a low IQ pandemic, because regardless of whether or not they were shot because they thought that the Puerto Rican flag was a Confederate flag, that will happen eventually. And the reason that will happen is twofold. On the bottom end, it's because people are stupid. On the top-down approach end, it's because people are telling people that it's okay to be violent against people who fly the Confederate flag. So it's a great point, Osis, and that's exactly that's very accurate. It's going to be something that we start to see a lot more. Violence is okay against people who fly Trump flags, Confederate flags, things like that. And it'll be interesting to see if we get any kind of motive on that, if it turns out that they actually did think that that was a Confederate flag. Now, excess testosterone in the womb. We've got a epidemic, not a pandemic, just an epidemic, just a plain old epidemic of people in the West who think that they are girls or boys, vice versa, but they're biological males or biological females. We talked about the transgender in sports. We talked about the hyperfeminization of society. We talked about the inversion that's happening on a giant societal level right now. But we've got some more data to help us understand why we're seeing what we're seeing. Now, for those who don't know, whether you turn out to be a male or female is determined in the womb based on your gender. Let's say your gender is determined based on the amount of testosterone that you're exposed to in the womb. Now, this is a study that tells us that congenital adrenal hyperplasia, which is, I believe, the exposure to high levels of testosterone while you're in the fetus state, provides a natural experiment to advance understanding of gender by revealing relative influences of prenatal hormones and socialization. Okay, so no, never mind. CAH is not that specifically, but let's continue on here. I'm trying to interpret this as we go. When we observe children ages 3 through 12 playing with a standard set of toys, for example, girls with CAH, who were exposed to more testosterone, played more with boys' toys, such as vehicles, Lincoln Logs, and less with girls' toys, like dolls and makeup, than did their sisters without CAH, but not as much as boys did. So these are basically tomboys. Okay, this is where tomboys come from. Now, there's always a question of nature versus nurture. We have more of a nature explanation for why girls would behave more like boys, because they're exposed to higher levels of testosterone in the womb. When observational data were combined with questionnaire responses, the difference between girls with and without CAH was very large, and there was little overlap between these groups. The male-type interests of females with the CAH continued into later adolescence and adulthood. Okay, that's key. The differences of testosterone exposure as a fetus continue on into adulthood. There are large differences between females with and without CAH on global questionnaire measures of hobbies and leisure activities. For example, sports. Does that ring any bells? You know, females in sports, or maybe we talked about that a little bit already. And building things versus dance and crafts. For example, females with CAH who had the highest prenatal androgens, which are like testosterone, exposure, have the highest interest and engagement in male-type activities and careers. In contrast to activities, gender identity is not strongly associated with inferred degree of prenatal androgen exposure. Gender identity is not associated with degree of prenatal androgen exposure, but your interests are. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, why is this relevant? I mean, we talk about this and the results of this on a mass scale every single week. Yeah, Lincoln Logs, Tonka trucks, exactly, all the fun stuff. Guys, why? Okay, people are always talking about how society is programming women to act like women, programming boys to act like boys. Basically, these are the anti-science people who only want to focus on the nurture version of how humans get raised and turn into actual people. Okay, because this is what I mean when I say you cannot escape nature. You cannot escape what I call the truth. Nature is the truth, or God, whatever you want to call it. Nature, truth, God, order. It's all the same in my eyes. This is what you cannot escape. You cannot make as many HR rules as you want. You can make as many laws as you want, but you cannot ever escape the fact that more testosterone exposure to you as a woman in the womb means you are still a woman. You just have more male interests. And now, if anybody tries to push back on that, well, guess what? I've got a study that I can point to that shows exactly that. All the things that we're seeing in society today. Inequality, gender inequality. There's not enough female CEOs. There's not enough female over here. Not enough whatever. Guys, it's all because there is a nurture aspect to your interests that is determined by, guess, your chromosomes. Sorry. Basic biological truths and principles that you can never escape make you inherently more and less interested in certain topics, certain things. Women are not interested in being CEOs. Okay? But if you expose them to excess testosterone in the womb, then guess what? Well, they might be more likely to want to be a CEO. They might be more likely to be a lesbian. They might be more likely to want to build things. They might be more likely to cut their hair short, wear flannel and suspenders, like, you know, the typical full butch lesbians do. And we have science that will tell us that now. Not that we didn't have any science previously, but this is brand new, hot off the press science that I wanted to share with you guys. Because, again, the moral here is that you cannot escape the truth. You cannot escape nature. Even if society destroys itself and recreates itself, the nature, the truth will still be there. And you remember, when you're dealing with these people in society, you want to shape society to erase nature, to act like the nature does not exist. You're dealing with people who are denying reality. Okay, they call us science deniers while claiming that there is no such thing as gender, while claiming that there is no such thing as gendered interests, that women aren't inherently more interested in people and men aren't inherently more interested in things. That is who you're dealing with. Now, keep that in mind as you try to save America. Okay? I know you're out there trying to save America. Some of you, you're out there. You're trying to save the Titanic as it's sinking. You're trying to frantically patch the holes in the side of the Titanic, trying to convince other people around you, hey, we can patch these holes. As you're doing that, remember, you have to convince the people who completely deny basic biological truths like this. Just keep that in mind. That's all I wanted to share with you guys on that one. Doug says in YouTube chat, Rachel Levine, the new U.S. Health Secretary, is here from the government to pump the ladies up. Yeah, well, I mean, that goes directly in line with what we were talking about early in the stream, where men are dominating women on every available platform, and that includes being transgender. Transgender men, or transgender women, are now achieving all the things that women should have apparently been achieving all along. Oh, man, what a crazy, insane world we live in, isn't it? I mean, it's funny to see that you need you really needed a science experiment to tell you that. You didn't know that by just looking and interacting with humans. It's pretty wild that people are so disconnected from reality that they couldn't know that. Paul,
I feel like on all social media, whether it's here, locals, Facebook, Twitter, Discord, everything, everywhere, all the time, I am constantly sharing Steven Pinker's The Blake Slate, The Modern Denial of Human Nature, again and again and again, because it's human nature around which so many modern political and societal topics revolve, and people just don't get it. They don't have a basic understanding. And if you ever tell a feminist that, like, the reason you're an anti-feminist is human nature, it doesn't even compute. It's just splonk. Nothing. Anyway. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone else coined this, but I think I did. It's there are two genders, male, female, and aberrations, and that's not an insult.
Ooh.
Evolution has no incentive to create by gender stuff. Doesn't.
Yes, well, that is a compared to what I call them, which is mutants. I mean, that's more of a biologically accepted term. That is aberrants. Jesus, dude, that is just call them abominations. You're one step away from that. But yeah, no, I agree with you. The blank slate, that is a big thing, people. Blank slate equalism is the underlying narrative that's perpetuated, whichever P word I'm going for here, by these leftists. Okay, the idea that you as a human being, you're born as a blank slate. And the reason you turn out the way you are is because 100% because of the nurture that you receive. Okay, what is your community telling you? What is your society telling you? What are you intaking from your family, from your friends, that is what turns you into who you are, not nature. There's no nature involved. If you even suggest that there's nature involved, again, this kind of goes to the same thing with the black question of culture. Okay, black culture. If you suggest that culture is the problem, well, then you're suggesting that maybe it can be changed. If you're suggesting that there's some nature involved in this, then you're suggesting that some of these things can't be changed. And in turn, you can't blame particular things on the groups that you want to blame. You can't weaponize things like, oh, look at this patriarchy. They're teaching women to wear pink and play with dolls. No, they just want to play with dolls. That's really all it is. And we're letting them do what they want to do. And we're encouraging what we've seen with our pattern recognition abilities over thousands of years to do. So, anytime you hear patriarchy, remember, any patriarchy argument, it's based off of blank slate equalism theory. It's based off the idea that there is no nature involved in turning you into who you are. So, remember this study anytime you hear stuff like that. Holly says, I gave my kids multi-sex toys trying to be gender neutral. It was the early 90s. They just traded toys. Can't escape nature, Holly. Can't escape nature. Now, you can have genetic aberrations, as Synergy calls them, which is, again, now this is the trap that you'll fall into. You got to be careful when you're talking about this kind of stuff. There are genetic anomalies out there that have, their intersex or whatever it is, but that's not how we decide policies. Okay, we don't decide policies based off of 0.01% of the population. We don't decide societal norms based off of 0.01% of the population. So avoid the trap of people trying to say, oh yeah, but what about intersex? What about these genetic aberrations that Synergy calls them? That's less than 1% of the population. Okay, we're not talking about those. We're talking about the 99% of the genetically normal people. And now, again, I can't even explain this without falling into all these little traps myself. You say the word normal once, they will lose their minds, because if you say the word normal, you're implying that there's abnormal, and then you know what that means. You're Hitler. Okay, if you imply there's an abnormal, you basically want that person to go in a gas chamber. That is the direct line of reasoning that the low IQ infected people will make against you if you simply imply that there is such a thing as normal. And unfortunately for them, there is. Synergy says, we're not blank slates. We have extremely powerful biological programming according to gender. Culture has an influence, but it is pitiful. Correct. And it's sad that we even have to be talking about that, but that is the degree to which our society is ill with the low IQ pandemic. We have to remind people that we are the result of thousands, millions of years of biological evolution, and we have programming built in order to ensure our survival as a species. Because let me present a quick question to you before we jump to the final story of the night. how long would the human race survive if we were all gay? And I'll leave it at that. Let's go to our next story from the Washington Post. Guys, if you didn't know, the Washington Post is hiring. They are now hiring, so if you're interested in a job, if you're looking for a job, you may consider the prestigious Washington Post for a career. Now, there's a little preamble. I gotta let you know, first of all, that you should probably, to get these positions anyway, if you're a racist, well, then you're exactly what they're looking for, because they are hiring. The Washington Post is hiring racists. From my source on Twitter, at @Borstein, Michelle Borstein, amazing news from the Washington Post. As part of its efforts to holistically deepen the diversity and inclusion of our journalism and newsroom, the Washington Post today just announced a dozen new positions. 12, including, per newsroom memo, 1, a managing editor for diversity and inclusion, a senior leadership position who will act as a convener of regular coverage discussions that will bring together an expanded group of editors, reporters, and visual journalists focused on race and identity. The managing editor will participate in story meetings, review coverage involving sensitive issues of race and diversity, and listen to and share staff concerns. That has got to be one tough newsroom to be in there, man. I mean, you just go in there, you say one wrong thing, dude, you'd be sweating bullets in every meeting in there. God, okay, can I say this? I don't know. What can I say? I'm white. I don't know what I can say. They will also identify and recruit candidates and participate in final decisions on hiring and promotion. Oh, okay. So the group that's specifically hired to be focused on race and identity is going to be making final decisions on race or on hiring and promotion. Awesome. That sounds great. That's just fantastic. They will also be hiring an America desk editor. This person will help direct and edit expanded coverage of race and identity. This team will be enhanced by the addition of the following 3 reporters. A Race in America writer, which is a reporter who can write with immediacy, sweep and authority on race and identity in America. A writer on America and multiculturalism. This is a reporter who will focus on the country's emergence as a predominantly multicultural society. A momentous demographic shift that requires sustained attention and enterprise reporting. Continuing on. A writer for the existing About Us newsletter, which covers identity in America. A national security writer. National security. With investigative skills who would dig into domestic terrorism. What do you think that means? Before we continue, domestic terrorism. I already told you guys, 9/11 playbook, domestic terrorism. Who are the domestic terrorists now? It's white people. That's right, because they will dig into domestic terrorism, including extremist groups with supporters in the military and police, the internationalization of far-right groups, and the sources of financial support for white nationalism. Oh, yes, that's right. The 9/11 playbook intensifies, because guess what happened after 9/11, folks? We had news outlets that had segments dedicated specifically to international terrorism, Islamic extremism, the same exact thing that we're now seeing, but turned against white people. Okay, the 9/11 playbook continues on. We're also hiring a criminal justice writer who will focus on the administration of justice. The administration of justice. Why am I getting Judge Dredd vibes from that? In the United States, from policing to probation. This beat will encompass the police reforms now being debated, incarceration at state levels and federal levels, and the experiences of those leaving prison. We're also hiring a style writer, a climate and environment writer, and last but not least, a health and science writer. This is a reporter who will focus on health disparities. God. The impact of structural and interpersonal racism on health, and the sociology and psychology of racism and its effects. Fascinating. Isn't that fascinating? Now, we talk about incentives. a lot on the show. And the inevitable first thing that I'm going to be going to with this is the question of incentives. Is Washington Post hiring 12 people a sign that they are losing money or doing well? Obviously, it's a sign that they're doing well. They're making money. They're getting income. Is Washington Post hiring 12 people with a specific focus on race an indication that the concept of race is profitable or unprofitable for the Washington Post? It's very profitable, highly profitable. So profitable, in fact, that we found a way to racialize literally everything. Climate, style, health and science, criminal justice, national security, multiculturalism. Everything can be racialized, as if it was not racialized enough already, because you may be thinking to yourself, but Jeremy, the Washington Post was already doing covering all this stuff. They were already turning everyone into a racist on all these topics. Yeah, you're correct, but now they're hiring specific teams with the specific goal of doing nothing but racial coverage on all these topics. And it's a little scary. I gotta say that, a little scary, because if you thought the racism was going to ease up at all, with Biden getting into office or anything like that, guess what, folks? I'm not going to claim a victory on the 9/11 playbook thing yet, but this is definitely an extension of what I call the 9/11 playbook being re-implemented on white domestic terrorists instead of Islamic terrorists in 2001. And they're turning it into kind of a more commercialized, publicly acceptable form of racism. This is just racism. It's every single one of these topics that they're going to be covering: national security, criminal justice, style, climate, environment, health, science, is all going to be geared towards not bringing up black people, not celebrating black people, or talking about race in an objective manner. I mean, we talked, like, for example, the health disparities thing. The health disparities, like for COVID, for example, the reason why we heard this narrative with COVID, there's racism in our healthcare system because look at how many black people are dying from COVID. It's not because of there's racism in our health systems. It's because black people are disproportionately obese. And that's the only thing that COVID was killing, is obese people and old people. Okay, but that's just a little sample. That's a sampler of the kind of stuff, the kind of distortions of reality that we're going to see coming out of the Washington Post, and it's going to be pumped out in high. I mean, there's a pipeline that's massive that's going to be pumping this out all over America on a constant basis because it's profitable. We've cultivated a society where being racist is profitable. Now, if we were led to believe that the white supremacy was out there, the white supremacy was reigning supreme, and the white supremacy was controlling everyone, well, then we would expect to see outlets like the Washington Post having teams dedicated to making money off of white supremacist stories. But we don't see those. So the evidence does not play out for their claims of a white supremacist society. However, the evidence of being a anti-white racist society is getting stronger and stronger by the day, as evidenced by this. Douglas says, I've been wanting to make my own t-shirt design that says white devil on it. Embrace the hate, let it flow through you. I like that. That's a good idea. Another merch idea. Maybe for the weekly narrative, potentially. Synergy says, as a child, I was extremely impressionable, but what we know now about the mind is that the brain stops developing at 25. I think I literally outgrew my leftism and became extremely independent after. Yes, it's a good point. The brain does not stop developing until about 25, and I believe it is a little bit sooner for females. They do mature faster than men, which is why you got to lock them in quick, right? You got to lock them in during college. And it's quite coincidental that the main method of transmission of the ideologies that we so love to hate. The communism, the socialism, is primarily distributed through colleges, which gets exclusive access to these people at the final stages of their development in life. The humming intensifies. Quite the coincidence on that one, isn't it? Osa says, that's weird. I was always pretty right and independent, to the dismay of my parents and coaches and all the girls I went to school with. I remember talking about how much I hated hippies in the 4th grade. Well, you know what, Osis? You were probably exposed to high levels of testosterone in the womb. Now, to piggyback off of that story, that goes for men as well. Okay, if men are exposed to higher levels of testosterone in the womb, guess what? That's where you get the manly men. Okay, because you can't nurture a soy boy into existence. You can't nurture a toothpick man with no muscle mass and really just weak physical presence. You can't nurture that into existence. That's a result of bad genetics. I guess you could help that process along with terrible nourishment as a child, but again, man, you got to look at biology for the majority of the explanation of how we are as individuals, but also as a society as a whole. Let's see. Yeah. Very big going around in chat. I was exposed to rampant leftism as a child. That's why I am the way I am. And that goes directly back to the point about, telling people what we should and shouldn't teach in schools, because we're likely to rebel against what we're told to believe as a child. And just as we're starting to wrap up the show, guys, if you haven't liked the show already, it goes a long way in helping me out. You can join my private community at Locals. Join my private Telegram as well. That is the backup channel for communications if the YouTube goes down. We got a comment from our female UK correspondent, Moneypenny.
Okay, so I only tuned in a short while ago. Not only is my favourite lady missing, but you look as though... Do you know what? When I saw it, I thought you were in some sort of clinic. Like one of those clinics where you get the amount of swimming little sperms measured. It's something to do with that dodgy blue light in the background. And then there's that weird guitar that looks like an 8-year-old would have. It's probably very expensive. Anyway, I was just saying, hi, really. You look very odd in a very strange place with a gaming chair. And have you got a ponytail? Apart from that, all is well.
Very observant as always. Thank you, Moneypenny. That is our UK correspondent pointing out the details that really matter in tonight's stream. Quickly to recap, this is a samurai bun. That is a guitar that is not mine, and that is a blue light that I can change the color of, by the way, and I might do that based on your suggestion. It could be any color you want. What color would you like, Moneypenny? And a comment from Paul.
Biology is a bitch. So I grew up with a unmarried mother. My father only at the age of 32 a few years ago. Had a sister, a twin brother, a grandmother. Grandfather was dead. A few uncles, a lot of aunts, a lot of female nieces, female cousins, female this, female that. And what's the first thing I did in my adult life? Join the army. Like, I did have a soft suburban San Diego upbringing. And, yeah, you can't take the fight out of the dog, as they say, or however that goes. I always wanted something harder, and you can't ignore the biology. It is what it is.
Exactly. Thank you for that. And I think this is a good message to end it on for the night. So I'll do a closing monologue here on biology and how society can improve itself. Because really, I don't want to just come here every stream and tell you about how society is crumbling. I leave little bits and pieces of suggestions and little lights of hope, rays of hope, lights at the end of the tunnel about how we can fix this stuff. And one of the things that we need to do individually is acknowledge things like what Paul said. You acknowledge the fact that I was raised to be soft. I had my upbringing was too easy. I probably didn't have as much adversity in my life as I should have had. And how can I voluntarily introduce some adversity into my life? And when I say that, I'm not talking about whipping yourself like the monks on the hillside of some town in Germany or something like that. I'm talking about things like going to the gym, putting yourself through calculated adversity, eating restricted amounts of calories and not just eating whatever you think feels great, looking around at you and trying to understand how and why things are the way that they are. It takes a lot of time and effort to actually ask those questions and do the mental brain power. It's too much work. That in itself is adversity that people aren't willing to put themselves through, that if we all did, society would be a lot better off. Now, let's close it out with I'm sure there's going to be another scathing comment from Moneypenny.
Oh, yeah, you're very nice. Okay, if you put the purple light on, I'll give you some news. Actually, I'll give it you anyway. So, in the last few hours, okay, so we've had the World Health Organization say they don't recommend that any children should be vaccinated.
Nice.
We've also had the UK announce the most ridiculous thing. Well, actually, it's England. The British government have announced that 60,000 football fans can come jumping into the country from wherever they like and come and sit snuggled up close together with absolutely no social distancing in Wembley to watch a football match. And at the same time, we've got a new Delta variant, Delta Plus, as it's called.
Delta Plus.
And yeah, it is kick ass. It is really not a nice variant. It's very, very dangerous. And it's all going to go horribly Pete Tong, which means wrong. I bet you don't get that in the US.
Pete Tong, that is he's a DJ. I do know Pete Tong, so that did not go over my head, Moneypenny, although I don't get the reference to that exactly. But I'm going to look into those topics. We can cover those. That definitely sounds juicy. I want to talk about those on the next stream. We'll talk about the children should be vaccinated. I took down some notes. Maybe you can hear my keyboard ticking there. But, folks, that is it for tonight's show. I hope you enjoyed. It was a wide array of content. If you like this stuff, if you like people that question and want to understand what reality is, what's really going on out there, and try to find some solutions that are actually feasible, not the Save America, Fight Back Patriots kind of solutions. Talking about real solutions that are going to last long into the future. Then like the show, give me a subscribe, follow me on Stereo. You can get a link to my locals page on the description of the YouTube video, which is just weeklynarrative.com. It'll take you to my locals.com page. Or join my Telegram for the backup chats as usual. You know the deal. We are here every Tuesday and Saturday at 7 p.m. PST. Hope you guys had as much fun as I did. We'll see you here, hopefully with Delaney back on Saturday. Watch out for that Delta Plus, folks. Delta Plus. How stupid.